If you've followed my How to Implement series, a striking pattern forms with a lot of nations' aircraft, and that is the existence of the AMRAAM. Since the AMRAAM was introduced to the United States in 1991, it has become the second most prolific air-to-air missile in U.S. service, second only to the AIM-9 Sidewinder. In War Thunder, it's been a continuous running point that at top tier, the aircraft means less than the missile it carries. With aircraft like the Yak-38 that has awful dogfighting capabilities but holds its own to R-60s, the question of how good the AMRAAM is becomes relevant when it becomes added to pre-Gen 4 aircraft like the F-4 FICE, the JA-37D, Sea Harrier FA-2, and the F-20 Tiger Shark. We'll also answer the question of when we'll actually start receiving AMRAAM-equipped Generation 4 aircraft like the Gripen, the F-16Cs, and the Tornado F-3. The AIM-120 AMRAAM is a beyond visual range active radar homing missile developed as a spiritual successor to both the AIM-54 Phoenix and AIM-7 Sparrow in both Air Force and Navy service. It was developed after the AIM-Val and ACE-Val tests that proved the dismal performance of the Sparrow compared to the infrared AIM-9 Sidewinder. As a result, the US was tasked with building a medium-range air-to-air missile for them and their European allies. Europe was tasked with a short-range air-to-air missile that was to become the AIM-132 ASRAAM. While the AIM-7 Sparrow's reliability has progressed significantly since the Vietnam variants, the US requirement was the missile ought to be capable of multiple fire and forget for the F-15 and F-16 like the AIM-54, but can also fit on the weapon stations of the AIM-7 Sparrow. The AIM-120, as an active radar homing missile, can go pitbull, meaning at its terminal phase it activates its own radar. In radar slave mode, the AMRAAM still requires information from the radar of the launch platform to determine the range and direction of the target aircraft. There is no minimum range limit before the active radar seeker can activate. The AMRAAM can also go pitbull as soon as it is launched. This is used in within visual range combat and bore sight visual mode where, without radar guidance, the AMRAAM goes pitbull as soon as it is launched and locks onto the first target the active radar seeker locks on. The early variants of the AMRAAM has a max range of between 55 to 75 kilometers for the A and B variants, and 85 to 105 kilometers for the C5 to C7 variant. The definitive variant of the AIM-120 is the AIM-120B with between 150 to 160 kilometers range. As previously mentioned, in beyond visual range, the AMRAAM relies on information from the aircraft's radar to determine the information of the target. Once launched, it will follow a trajectory based on the information obtained from the radar. Early AMRAAMs do not have mid-course update, which hampered the missile's effectiveness in BVR, as determined by the RAF when they opted not to fit mid-course correction upgrades on their AMRAAMs and found that it had worse kill probability than the Skyflash missile. Subsequent variants with mid-course corrections tends at a PK of 0.59 and even greater for newer variants. So what does this mean for its implementation in War Thunder? Easily the biggest problem of the game is engagement ranges. A staggering majority of the maps are still summit around 50 by 50 kilometer knife fights. Occasionally, an enduring conflict map shows up, but that's about it. For AMRAAMs and R-27s, it can still work since early AMRAAM and R-27 variants are only marginally better than the Sparrow for BVR engagements. There are even arguments made that the AIM-7E2 and Skyflash do better than the AIM-7F for the purposes of War Thunder. However, the AMRAAMs and R-27s are no longer in the same league as the ENF Sparrow variants and R-23. Sure, R-27 and AMRAAMs can still have awful shots that would land in a definite miss, but most of the time at visual ranges these missiles can work, or if not, their launch platforms almost always have backup sidewinders or R-60M or R-73s for close-in engagements. That's unless of course you decide a full AMRAAM load for the F-16 and F-15 is more your jive, and with that, more power to you. Now speaking of the F-16 and F-15, let's talk about aircraft that each nation might get that carry AMRAAMs. For the United States, the first AMRAAM-equipped aircraft we might see is the F-15A or the F-14A that tested an AMRAAM, though if on the F-14 it might not get the AMRAAM right away, but rather as a retrofit when the MiG-29s have their fun with R-27s. The AWG-9 AMRAAM combination is a great step before having the F-15A and the APG-63. For Israel, it would be the same, as they basically use the same aircraft as the United States. I wonder why. The F-16C Block 30 Barak would likewise be the first aircraft in Israel with AMRAAM capability. This would be followed by the F-15A Baz. For Germany, the F4F ICE with the AMRAAM is most likely the first vehicle with AMRAAMs in that tree, as they did not opt to have the Tornado ADVs fitted with AMRAAMs. Using the APG-65 radar, the F4F ICE could certainly hold its own with the AIM-9L and AMRAAM combination, not to mention if it gets the IRIS-T missiles it tested in 2001. They could push an early Eurofighter Typhoon variant with AMRAAMs and A9Ls in the German tree, as I said in the video that I made about the Eurofighter Typhoon. Link to which would be on the top right of your screen. As stated above, the Tornado F3 will also be the first AMRAAM-equipped aircraft of the British. The RAF designation of the Tornado ADV, the Tornado F3, will probably come with the AMRAAM, AIM-9L, and Skyflash combination, and get the ASRAAM afterward. This would be the same case with Italy, who also operated Tornado ADVs. China will get the taste of the AMRAAM as well with the F-16A Block 20. As delivered in 1992, the F-16A Block 20 did not have AMRAAMs but only fitted AIM-9M and AIM-7M missiles with the upgraded AN/APG-66V3 radar. However, Taiwan received delivery of AMRAAMs as early as last year. It is assumed that the variant of the AMRAAM they are using is the AIM-120 C7 variant, and Taiwan might have to wait a bit for those AMRAAMs to be added. Go have fun with your Mirage 2000s for a bit. Sweden won't be left behind with all these upgrades. The J37D with the RB74 and RB99 are probably the first to have it before the Swedes get the JAS 39 Gripen. The JA-37D can track up to 2 targets with its ES-46A radar, so ripple fire isn't off the table for it with the AMRAAM. In my opinion, the JA-37D and the F4F ICE would be the earliest AMRAAM-equipped aircraft to be added. So if we're to expect when the AMRAAM is coming, it's probably when the F-15 and Su-27 get added. The R-27 might appear on the MiG-29 before the AMRAAM, however, as those can only carry 2 at best, while aircraft like the F-16 and F-15 can carry 6 to 8 AMRAAMs. No, I'm just kidding. It's because the MiG-29 is a Russian plane, and Gaijin won't have a Russian plane get caught lacking against his Western counterparts. So that's it for the AMRAAM. Again, thank you for watching. This is Dr. MD, and remember, the F-5C is pound for pound the best premium plane out there. Stay tuned for the next episode when we discuss what possible Gen 4 aircraft you can buy into to ruin top tier. To have the Generation 4 experience at its most comfortable. See you around. Take care.